From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters. This is Politics Today with Jackie Kingston.
During last week's State of the City address, some highlights had to do with downtown. Coming up, an extended interview with the Assistant City Manager about what may be next for Center City.
I think it was a mistake to pull out a TPP.
And Representative Mac Thornberry says he doesn't want to talk about his legacy after he announces that he's going to retire when his term ends. Instead, he wants to talk about what else he'll get done. An extended interview with Congressman Thornberry coming up. Hi, everyone. I didn't know if I really thought that I would be the one who would get to report on Texas's 13th district changing hands, but it seems like I will after Representative Mac Thornberry announced that he would retire last week. When he was reticent to say whether he would run against again a few months ago, the speculation began that he would not. And finally, this week, he announced his decision. When I spoke with him, it seemed like he was more focused on his more than a year and a quarter he has left of his term. He admitted he doesn't know exactly what comes next after that. Here is a portion of our interview.
You can do lots of grousing about the state of politics and other things these days, but what Sally and I really feel is incredible gratitude for having had the opportunities that the people of this area have given us for the last 25 years. We feel very, very fortunate indeed. Getting to do things, for example, that no other Texan has ever gotten to do, and to represent this area with some folks who have been incredible to work for. So it is, you know, as we figure out at some point the next phase of our life, what we're going to think about is how grateful we are for what the last 25 years have made. And I hope that that comes across for the people of our area, because they're the ones that made it possible. See what questions you got.
So what's next?
I have no idea. At some point, Sally's going to make sure I get a job. I don't know where or how that's going to be, but I've got a year and a quarter or so left in this job. And so, needless to say, there's a lot going on. We need to finish this year's defense bill. There's a little drama in Washington these days. So hopefully we can look for ways to be productive even through the drama. And so the expression running through the tape is what goes through my mind, and that's what I really must do for the people of our area.
What are some of the things that weighed in on your decision to retire? What are some of the reasons that you thought now's the time?
Yeah, well, number one was I've done it 25 years, and it'll be 26 next year. So that's a good long while, and a lot longer than I ever expected it to be. As you know, Republicans in the House have term limits on how long you can be at the top of a committee, whether you're chairman or ranking member. And so my time at the top of the Armed Services Committee comes to an end next year, and that played a role. But generally, I just think it's time. It's time for us. It's time for the district. It was time for a change. As I quoted Ecclesiastes there, you know, for everything there's a season, and I think there's a time for a different season for us.
What do you think will be involved in that season? What do you look, as you know the Republican Party like you do?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. As I also tried to say, just because you leave this particular job does not mean you quit caring about the country, or that you don't continue to have responsibilities to help look after the country. And I feel that, and I think most of the people in our area feel that. So I don't know in what capacity, what job it would be next, but in some ways I look forward to whatever opportunities those will hold. But again, first I gotta finish what the people have already hired me to do all the way through.
Congressman Thornberry.
Republicans have announced that they are either considering or are planning to file to run in what will be the Republican primary. Amarillo City Councilwoman Place 1 Elaine Hayes was first to make that announcement. She was followed by Vance Snyder II, who says he'll be filing. Josh Weingartner, who is the Director of Government Relations at the Texas Cattle Feeders Association, says he's considering a run. So too is former Amarillo Mayor Trent Sizemore. Democrat Greg Sagan announced that he would run for Thornberry's seat earlier in in the year. We now know the state of our city. After the State of the City address on Thursday morning, Mayor Ginger Nelson and other city leaders held the event out at the Amarillo Civic Center. They discussed several accomplishments throughout the city over the past year, such as the progress they've made on bringing the vet school to our area, the new efforts by the city to clean up alleys and neighborhoods, and the success of Hodgetown. City leaders also discussed the direction the city is going and some of the future plans they have for projects like the Thompson Park Pool and the changes they have in mind for the Amarillo Civic Center. More on that in a minute.
What do you imagine for our city? We get to decide what kind of city we want to live in, and we are imagining now what our children and our grandchildren will put into place. We're getting very good at making big goals and executing on them. So what big goal do you want for our city?
The State of the City happens every year. What does not happen every year? Creating the Amarillo Civic Center. The assistant city manager spoke with us about the proposals and feedback they've gotten from Amarillo voters about it at the State of the City address last week. Here's what he has to say about the Civic Center's role in Amarillo's future.
We've been involved for many months now in our Conversation Civic Center, where we are really looking for input from the community on where they would like to see us take the Civic Center for the next 50 years. The Civic Center was originally built in 1968. It served our community very well for 51 years, but the simple reality is that we have a number of needs in the facility that we simply cannot address with the current infrastructure, and it's time for us to look at an opportunity to reinvest in the Civic Center to meet industry standards and to grow us for the next 50 years.
What are some of the obstacles do you think the city's facing come May, from here now until May?
Well, the biggest thing is that we are wanting to have a conversation with our community because we really want that feedback on the project. It does come at a substantial price tag. We recognize that. It is going to take taxpayer approval to move us forward with this project. And it's from that perspective that we want to have that conversation, so we want to hear from the community on what parts of the project resonate with them and what parts of the project they have questions about and want to learn more about. So that's the whole point of the next couple of months, is that we are having a conversation with our community to learn what their feedback is on the proposed project, which includes a new arena that will seat a maximum of 10,100, renovation of the Civic Center, the entire Civic Center, with the expansion of a new convention center space of the 75,000 square foot. This will position us with all of those aspects for the next 50 years of being a competitive Civic Center and be able to serve our community moving forward.
It was early in the morning when they had that State of the City address around 7 a.m. I think they were kind of, trying to get people pumped up and keep them awake during that time with the music in the background. And one of the reasons for the strength of our city is Center City. That's according to a new reinvestment report put out by Center City of Amarillo. Coming up, we'll take a look at where the more than $57 million has gone in the past year in downtown. I'm Jackie Kingston. You're watching Politics Today from your local election headquarters. A presentation made to the Amarillo City Council earlier this week shows more than $57 million has been pumped into downtown Amarillo this year, which, according to Center City of Amarillo, shows confidence in its revitalization. Beth Duke, the executive director of Center City, says it's all new money being pumped into downtown. They see it as a sign of confidence as property values in downtown and in the warehouse district increase.
And we've had some great interest in those buildings, and we hope that they become places for more restaurants, maybe some lofts, and we want people to take a serious look at downtown growth and see the possibilities in these great old buildings.
Duke says the reinvestment is a sign of confidence, even if not everyone is on board. Now joining us to talk more about the specifics of where that money was invested, Politics Today's Kaylee Green. Kaylee, thanks for being here. There's a big baseball stadium-sized place in downtown that I can guess is where a lot of the public-private money went to.
And your guess would be exactly correct. When it comes to Hodgetown, that's the biggest chunk of this $57 million, more than that even, that was reinvested into downtown. And that's obviously the biggest chunk of the public-private partnerships as well. And we heard, Beth was talking a little bit about not everybody was on board for the baseball stadium, but of course we're talking, 400,000 visitors to the park and jobs. Now, when we look at some of the private reinvestments, you've got nearly $13.5 million coming from the private sector. And Beth Duke pointed out that Baptist Community Services is one of the biggest reinvestments privately made to downtown. Now, publicly, the Amarillo Police Department used their funds to acquire property there on the 200 block of South Fillmore, which they then renovated for parking. And of course, in the public-private partnerships, those make up, of course, more than $42.3 million of those total expenditures. Some of the biggest being the Levine's building and the Junior League House, but not to mention Hodgetown.
What did Beth say when you asked about, where we go in the future? What does 2020 bring for Center City?
So she had a lot to say about public monies, and of course that's going to be revamping the Amarillo Civic Center. It needs quite a facelift. That is expected to be done in phases beginning at some point next year.
Depending on what the voters say about that bond election coming up in May. All right, Kaylee Green, thanks for being here this morning. Some pushback in Perryton after students flew Mexican flags at a pep rally. Coming up, what the school district has to say about why they're supporting their students. Some controversy you may have heard about in Perryton after the high school's pep rally last week. A few students at the pep rally flew Mexican flags, which caused some of the community to speculate on their motives. But the superintendent of Perryton ISD explained to us that these students were simply expressing and celebrating their Hispanic heritage and expressing themselves. So the day before the rally, it was Dress Internationally Day, where students were encouraged to dress in a fashion that reflected and celebrated both cultural diversity and individual heritage. The weeks before, the school had been celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which began on September 15th. So the superintendent says these students were just excited to show their heritage and had no ill intent.
And let's have a conversation, and let's actually try to hear each other, because in the end it's all about coming together, and it's about serving kids. It's not about grinding a political axe or making a political point. There are places for that, but we don't want it to be what we're about at Perryton ISD. We want to be about kids.
Dr. Little talking there about the outrage on social media and in person that he experienced after all of this. It's Bringing Out Politics Today's Maggie Glenn to talk with us more about this story. So Maggie, I understand that there was a press release even sent out immediately after that pep rally and before the football game that night. What was that all about?
So pretty much what had happened was at the pep rally itself, a couple parents had even said to Dr. Little, like, hey, look at those kids, look what they're doing. He didn't have a problem with it. He didn't think anything of it. Again, he kind of was like, they're just celebrating their heritage. But then after the pep rally, more people started talking, and he didn't want, the school district didn't want it turning into something even bigger at the game itself. So that's why they sent the press release just kind of saying like, hey, let's have the focus be on the game itself. They didn't want any fights to break out or anything. So that's kind of what that was about.
So what's the fallout after this? Has more happened after that? Did anything happen at the game?
So nothing happened at the game. Everything was fine. There was a couple reports of something happening with a couple other flags, but that's kind of unclear. But pretty much what Dr. Little was trying to get across, he brought up the First Amendment. He said these kids have the right to express themselves. They weren't trying to make any type of political statement like some people were implying. You know, leading up to it, it was Hispanic Heritage Month. It still is. It began on September 15th. So he was just saying, you know, it's their First Amendment right to express themselves in any way they want. Just because they go to a public school doesn't mean they lose these rights. So he was kind of sticking up for these kids. They didn't do anything wrong.
Interesting, too, that it's sort of the knee-jerk reaction, or it was, that caused all of this drama to all of this where there was really no there.
Right.
Check your sources, maybe a good reminder for all of us.
Right, and that's kind of what maybe sparked it, was just people speculating, you know? Nobody went up and asked these kids what, you know, their motivations were or anything. They kind of just speculated and formed their own opinions. And actually, Dr. Little did comment on that. He said he's not going to call these people wrong for having their opinions. They have every right to their own opinion. But again, he said these kids didn't do anything wrong.
All right, so. Maggie, thank you for asking those questions, and thanks for being here this morning. We appreciate it. The president expands Medicare coverage for some, giving them added options when it comes to the way they go to the doctor. Coming up, we'll head to Florida and hear from the president himself. The impeachment investigation heating up in Washington with new developments daily since its beginning nearly 2 weeks ago. So at the time of this recording, please take that with a grain of salt, newly released text messages show the extent to which U.S. diplomats pressured Ukraine to investigate Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden. Thursday night into Friday, the 3 House committees released new evidence after former U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, met behind closed doors with investigators. House Democrats released text messages provided by Volker showing President Trump wanted the Ukrainian president to agree to launch investigations into former Vice President Joe Biden before meeting with the newly elected leader. Earlier in the week, President Trump making this stunning suggestion.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
The president also took to Twitter despite the inquiry, writing he has a, quote, an absolute right, perhaps even a duty to investigate or have investigated corruption. That would include asking or suggesting other countries help us out. That is, of course, illegal in the United States of America. One White House official says he will work with Congress on questions about Ukraine. Energy Secretary and former Texas Governor Rick Perry has met on at least 3 occasions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He said that he will cooperate with lawmakers in this impeachment inquiry. Senator Bob Menendez sent Perry a letter questioning a trip that he took last spring to Zelensky's inauguration. Perry went in the place of Vice President Mike Pence. A whistleblower says President Trump told Pence to cancel that trip because he wanted to see how Zelensky chose to act in office. Perry is reportedly planning to step down from his position by year's end in the president's cabinet. Politico first reported that story, which was later picked up by the Washington Post and the New York Times. Thursday, President Trump traveled to Florida to sign an executive order to expand services under the Medicare Advantage plan, the program's private option. Lots going on for the president this week. He says the plan will give seniors access to new technology like telehealth and that it will lower costs. The president says the expansion is important to protect the Medicare benefits he says are under attack by Democrats.
We are making your Medicare even better, and we're not letting anyone, it will never be taken away from you. We're not letting anyone get close. As long as I'm president, no one will lay a hand on your Medicare benefits. And
about 1/3 of Medicare recipients are enrolled in the Medicare Advantage option. The administration says with these added benefits, they do expect that number to increase. It's a unique soundtrack for the political junkie, the campaign walk-up song. Coming up next, I'll take a look at what songs we'll be hearing a lot of before the 2020 election ends in this hour. To apologize to you because I feel like one of these songs is going to get stuck in your head for the rest of the day, so bear with me. Rally songs are becoming as much a part of the presidential campaign as the speech. Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer breaks down the historical meaning behind it all in today's This Happened.
Music can change a campaign rally from this to this. All with a little help from John Lennon's Power to the People. It's a tactic that's been used by politicians for generations.
It goes back really to the 1840s, the writing of original campaign songs.
Lauren Kajikawa studies the musical soundtrack for candidates throughout history here at George Washington University in D.C. Memorable jingles like these helped lead candidate after candidate into the White House. But as Americans' music tastes changed, so did the campaign soundtrack.
I think political strategists started to realize that they could rely on existing popular music that would embody some of the values.
Now artists like Tom Petty to Stevie Wonder get featured by candidates hoping to form an emotional bond with their voters.
From Elizabeth Warren using Dolly Parton's hit 9 to 5 to Beto O'Rourke's love for punk rock, 2020 Democratic candidates' playlists are unique as ever.
It's kind of an index of identity.
Kajikawa says the one thing that hasn't changed over the years is the strategy behind it all.
Former Vice President Biden, his playlist is evenly split between black and white artists, and Kamala Harris's playlist is much more, it's the most, I think, African-American artist of any of the other candidates in the field right now.
Music remains an unwavering part of the American campaign, and that tune isn't changing anytime soon. Reporting in Washington, I'm Kelly Meyer.
It could be kind of a fun party game, right? Invite all your friends over, play the songs, be like, which presidential candidate has used this one as their walk-up song? Go back a couple of different, no, just me and, okay, I'm sorry. President Trump's song during the 2016 campaign, of course, you can't always get what you want. The Rolling Stones did repeatedly ask then candidate Trump to stop playing their song, and the result was you can't always get what you want. And he kept playing it, and still does. Okay, before we go today, if you live here in the Lone Star State in Texas, you need to register to vote for the November election by tomorrow. Tomorrow is your final day to be able to do that. Election Day coming up on November 5th. There are about 10 constitutional amendments that we get to vote on then, so some important stuff going on. Make sure you register and make your voice heard, and make sure you are ready when you hit the ballot box in November or for early voting. Don't forget that you can follow us on social media. You can like us on Facebook. You can like us on Twitter. I'm Jackie Kingston, plus the #1. Stay up with all the latest political news with us on myhighplains.com. We have continuing coverage there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week.